Hello and welcome to Hot Takes, the Hotwire podcast. I'm Sarah Calhorn. I'm your host for this episode, and I'm also the Vice President of our Industrial Technology practice. As a global tech communications consultancy, we get the privilege of speaking to industry leaders and innovators all the time. So every once in a while, we like to take them aside and get a hot take on big ideas, current trends, how they're staying relevant in the madness of 2020. And hopefully in the process, provide some insights to our listeners on how you can connect with your customers in the market at large. And today I have Brenda Discher joining me. She is a very rare human. She's a mechanical engineer. She's a design software expert. She is a loud extrovert. She is a mom, and she is a marketing executive from Detroit. You don't often find that in a single package. And currently, Brenda runs business strategy and marketing for Siemens Digital Industries Software globally. And that is the chunk of Siemens that focuses on industrial automation and digital transformation of manufacturing. So welcome, Brenda. Thank you so much for joining us. Did I miss anything? Did I get that right?
Oh my God, Sarah, it is a pleasure to be here. You missed nothing. You know me better than my mom. And I don't even think I need to add anymore. Thank you for that introduction. I feel privileged to be here.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And today we're going to dig into some meaty topics. We're going to talk about Industry 4.0. We're going to talk about digital mindset. And we're going to talk about how, as marketers, we can think in, among, and around, and for these huge and important ideas and the changes that they are bringing to bear in the industrial sector. So to kick us off, I would love for you to help us understand and the listeners understand what we mean by Industry 4.0. Like, your career's seen the formation of this idea and now it's in execution. What the heck does it mean?
What the heck does it mean? Yeah, there's a lot of buzzwords. And we're in the midst of this 4.0, Industry 4.0 transformation. It's happening all around us. In fact, one could argue that this year with the coronavirus pandemic has kind of catapulted this particular kind of, transformation. And the fourth revolution, in my view, is really about furthering automation using smart, connected technology and kind of the big shift to digital, which provides data, real-time analytics, and just smarter products all around us. I mean, we're using a bunch of those right now, to be able to have this conversation. And when I think about it, and I think about the customers I talk to all the time, it's really about businesses getting more connected digitally and people having to adapt. As important it has been in this year, but people are adapting all the time because being a digital enterprise, which sounds like it's no longer optional. It's really become an imperative. And not as a result of being a digital enterprise from COVID, from kind of the pandemic this year. What's interesting is becoming a digital enterprise and kind of going through a transformation. This happens a lot after big challenges or big crises. There's also always really interesting innovations that happen following major crises. In fact, if I go back in history, not that I want to relive other years like this one, this has been challenging for those of us that are extroverts, especially. If I look at like World War II and you think about like all the things that happened that I don't want to relive, there were incredible innovation that came about, like the jet engine, the radar, pressurized cabins were all a result of kind of what happened then. And if I look at other big crises that have happened, think about Apollo 13. There were astronauts actually stuck in space that couldn't return home. And they leveraged kind of technology of today that's part of Industry 4.0 called this digital twin, which is really a digital, kind of a way to digitally represent a particular component or piece of technology. And NASA controllers had to rewrite the procedures to get these folks home. And they had their own digital twin called a simulator that was the procedures to simulate all of this. So these are all examples of kind of like embracing smart, connected digital products, which has become kind of the new norm in a weird way. The new norm everywhere.
I didn't know Apollo 13 gave birth to the digital twin. That's amazing.
Isn't that pretty cool? It is cool. I mean, if you think about it, a digital twin is really a way to represent something that's physical. Mm-hmm. And think about, you got people, up in space, you got people down on the ground. And so it really was their version of a digital twin because they simulated everything needed so that they could, return the people home safely. Yeah, it's kind of the first incarnation of the idea of representing something digitally. Yeah, it's kind of a cool analogy.
So those are beautiful examples of the developments then that we're seeing play out today. Talk to me about some of the real hard examples of Industry 4.0, the solutions you're starting to see roll out now or even before the pandemic that you think will be bigger and greater as they go on.
Yeah, good one. So I would say if I go back maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago, which, the Industry 4.0 really started, it actually started in Germany in kind of the, late 2011-ish timeframe, right? So we're about 10 years into this. And it was interesting, I was at another software company at that time. And one of the projects I worked on early on at the beginning of Industry 4.0 was this idea of it was a woman. She was a motorcycle driver. She had been in a pretty catastrophic accident, and through the use of 3D laser scanning and 3D printing, we were able to scan the limb, her good leg, and actually produce a prosthetic for her injured leg. And it was kind of, for me, the beginning of seeing how digital representations of technology could make such an impact on the world. And so fast forward to today where, there's so many customer examples where customers have to rethink using digital methods. And kind of this year, nobody had a choice to rethink some things in a digital method. There's so many cool examples, right? It's challenging, but cool examples. So we have a customer, an automotive startup in Vietnam called VinFast. And they did something unheard of in their industry. They stood up an entire factory, a digital automotive factory, in 21 months, which is just something that takes our traditional automotive industry, 5 years to do. But did they not only do that, because they have a pretty adaptable, enterprise. It's all digital, it's all robotic, it's all automated, it's all smartly connected. They were able to, in the midst of this year, they put their hand up and said, this is kind of a rough year. They retrofitted their factory in a matter of 3 weeks, enabled them to produce ventilators in need of what was needed in their country. And they were able to do that as a result of kind of like licensing a design from someone else. They're automotive engineers, but they licensed the design and they were able to produce, ventilators, actually 55,000 ventilators a month. Pretty incredible. Wow. And another example that I think is pretty interesting for me, and I'm, I'm an extrovert, Sarah, I'm bothered by not being able to travel. But, another customer of ours, Airbus, who doesn't know the aerospace industry, right? They are so focused on getting people safely back in the air, right? But what's important is safe, right? We all want to know that the air is clean. And they've used, their engineers, again, kind of with a digital mindset, have done a high fidelity analysis of filtration systems. And they've developed a way to recirculate air using a filter that can remove even the teeniest, smallest size, microscopic size of bacteria and virus clusters. And they can do this, they recirculate the air in the cabin every 2 minutes. So, people like me that want to get back on a plane just makes me feel safer. So, I could go on and on, so many cool examples.
But these are dreamy scenarios. Like when we talk about this stuff in retrospect and how it came to be, it sounds just like these amazing, why wouldn't we all do this? But talk a little bit about, for the folks that are working on these, what's so hard about these changes, that what makes it so some people can't do them, or what are those aha moments that people experience where they realize, I could make ventilators here?
Yeah, so first off, in general, it's so funny. Change is hard.
Yeah.
And so I think the fundamental problem here is it is really hard to retrain a muscle, right? I'm in my home office. I've been here now, just like probably you, right, for what it's going on 9 months right now. And I've worked in my home office before on Fridays a lot when I've traveled, but I'm telling you, this full-time change is hard. We're human beings, we're used to a single thing. I would say the single biggest enabler for me has been entrepreneurs, executives, and what I call change agents within an organization, changing their mindset to think about embracing this technology and realizing I got to relearn a muscle. I've got to think about doing this differently, but the payoff in the end will be amazing. Another interesting example, we have a small little mountain bike manufacturer actually out in the Bay Area, out in the neck of the woods where I think you are. And they are a small company, a couple dozen people, engineers in one city, manufacturing in another, and their suppliers are yet in a third location. And, think about this year, think about having a digital mindset. They reached out to us and said, we're using some of your design tools, but we need collaboration tools that allow us to concurrently, engineers, in all these different cities, work, and because we can't leave our houses, right?
Mhm.
And so not only do we need the software and the technology to work for us, but we need a way to concurrently design at the same time. And so they embraced a piece of our technology. But to me, what I felt interesting was their CEO, who I had the opportunity to get to meet virtually. To me, he said, if I can figure out how to use digital tools in order to optimize my personal productivity, and he
Mhm.
was talking about things in his home office, I need to be able to leverage digital processes to change my work, environment. And so he really embraced that, and I think he's changed his little tiny business as a result.
Yeah. And I'm actually in Minneapolis. I often spend a lot of time in the Bay Area.
Minneapolis.
Not
I
this year.
thought
I'm
you were in
close
the
to
Bay.
you. I'm close to you. Usually spend a lot of time out there, but my business is words, and that's easy to send via Zoom or email, but you can't. Designing a bike or extruding a bike is a lot harder, or stamping it. I don't know how bikes are made. However they do that,
Right.
that's harder to do without being in real life. So now we've sort of started digging into this digital mindset, and how that's crucial for and challenging for industrial companies, because a lot of these folks are really used to thinking in this in real life way that industry 4.0 is totally reframing for them. So
Yeah.
talk to me more about that digital mindset and those change agents.
Yeah, so first off, let me step back a little and say, so with Industry 4.0, it's both about embracing digitalization of process,
Mm.
right? But it's also about enabling kind of a different way of working in order to enable more people to be kind of brought in earlier in the process. And it's really about the, kind of the art of the possible, right? How do people rethink their business? And there's transformation happening in so many places, right? From process industries to discrete industries, IT people who used to never talk to the OT people. The other place where I see the blurring happening, I call it the blurring in the industries, as a result of kind of reframing innovation, is electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, people that are used to doing simulation engineering. And so, if you think about reframing innovation, not only can you change not just the capacity or the capability of the different disciplines, that are required to be a digital enterprise, but you also can kind of leverage and enable a reframing of kind of that innovation process. And again, I love talking about our customers, because customers help me understand the impact of this change. And so let me tell you about reframing innovation. One of my most favorite customers, it's a valve manufacturer that is in, of all places, Israel. This little company, they're called Hamlet, okay? And they were established in the 1950s. They're a supplier of high-tech compression fittings and valves. And their valves literally open and close on the shop floor of factories all over the world. But what's really, what's kind of a challenge for them, this is probably the big challenge, right, is these valves open and close. And what they're doing is they're maintaining the flow of pretty toxic industrial lubricants, okay? And the valves fail pretty often. And they're a pretty small manufacturer. They're in the factory. And when a valve fails, right, the folks that are up in the office, they got to get on these, hazmat suits. They got to go down on the floor. The entire factory has to stop, right? So, and they've been doing this for years and years and years. And they were a company that said, let's think about this reframing, the way you said this, Shara. Let's think about reframing innovation and what's a different way to look at this. And they realized that there is, through the use of IoT, a lot of IoT devices have sound on them. They have microphones. They installed a teeny little IoT sensor that had a microphone next to the valves, okay? And they were able to then listen and track kind of vibration, and they would know within pretty good, sophisticated analysis, they knew within about, I don't know the time, I want to say it was 40 minutes, the valve is about, something's going to happen in that valve, there's a problem with the valve. And so instead of having any of the issues with kind of the industrial lubricant getting out into the floor, they would actually shut the valve down and replace it very quickly and keep everything going. No problems with people's or whatever. But probably the thing that's the coolest part of this little story is they then realized these valves that were in this factory that was kind of a pilot factory of theirs. They realized, something, maybe we should rethink about every valve we sell to anybody. we should include this new kit, this IoT kit, this connected kit, the microphone and everything, and the tech in order to kind of monitor the valves, so that what we start selling, talk about reframing innovation, we're no longer selling valves. What we're selling is factory uptime.
Yeah.
So they kind of rethought about a new business model. And so to me, I find stories like that so fascinating because they embraced an industrial challenge, right? They embraced an issue with a manufacturing piece of equipment, but then they leveraged kind of the foundation of what Siemens has done, from automation to electrification to now kind of industry 4.0, which is smart connected technology and data, in order to not just fix a manufacturing issue, but rethink their business model. It's just a fascinating way of thinking about the reframing.
And it also really brings up a good point, which is so often in manufacturing facilities, there's some like old maintenance dude, it's usually a dude, who's like, that doesn't sound right. And like, that is what keeps the factory or the machine or whatever it is running. And when uptime is so crucial to the bottom line, those folks are retiring. You need your little IoT ear expert when you don't have Jimmy or Paul or whatever his name is anymore.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. I also love that story because it also brings in that idea that you might be a fluid process expert, but now you also need that IoT expertise wrapped together, like you were talking about with mechatronics, like new specialties and mushing together of specialties are really
the blurring idea we talked about a few minutes ago. Like if you think about it, right, I'm no longer just an expert in the mechanical aspects of how this valve works. I'm actually now, I'm an analytics, I'm maybe a data scientist, right? Think about all that additional knowledge. Yeah, this is that blending of the OT and the IT, right? The blending of these different types of individuals. It's so fascinating to watch.
So, and that I want to ask you about this, because so many of these industries are trying to go through this transformation and they have a certain existing talent pool. How are they bringing in new folks or retraining or dealing with that challenge?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. That's a tough one. That is really, no, it's a great question. And there are a lot of companies that are kind of high tech companies like ours that are trying to figure out, what do we do in order to think about talent, upscaling your talent, and more importantly, there's so much knowledge in the minds of people that have been in our traditional manufacturing facilities and for so many years. They're retiring. How do you capture that knowledge in a way that you can leverage it? And so, I mean, and by the way, this has been a personal focus of mine and some of the stuff I'm even driving in my own organization with kind of people who want to do the stuff I do, marketing, a traditional way. And so to me, I think it takes leaders to flip the conversation a little bit around and think about what are the kinds of outcomes I believe we need to drive, right? And so to me, I spend the time thinking about, so I have different talent populations. I might have my people that are right coming out of school, and I have the people that have a tremendous amount of experience, but maybe are a little bit digging their heels in on change, right? They're struggling with change. And to me, it's really like, how do I blend this entrepreneurial spirit of this generation with the knowledge and experience of this generation? And so for me, I can explain it in the way I do it, right? So I really take the time with my talent to figure out, like, I try to be really, really, really clear on what's the purpose or the outcome we're trying to drive. Regardless of the knowledge of the talent, what does success look like a year from now? So, what's the outcome we're trying to drive? And then I look for change agents. Those change agents might be the ones that really understand the knowledge, and they might be the entrepreneurials, right? They're often hidden in the organization.
Yeah.
Some people call these people the water cooler talkers. They're the ones at the water cooler that everybody kind of huddles around, and they're always like, God, I really like what Susie said or what John said, because what an interesting, they're kind of a change agent, right? And the third thing for me is really, you just got to over communicate so people understand we all have value. It's really about adapting that value and being able to leverage it to change trajectory, whatever that change agenda is, and kind of explaining it over and over again. And let me try to make it a little bit more concrete for kind of like what I'm doing in my own organization right now, right? I have a change agenda, back to the, you got to have an outcome. And what am I trying to drive? So I'm trying to drive three things. Change what people think about Siemens Digital Industries Software outside the building, kind of reframe what they think about who we are. I talk about that all the time, every day with market data. I mean, I'm constantly talking about that to every employee. Number two, it was really about number two, the other part of my agenda, my change agenda is what are we doing to shift to be more digital? Okay. And then my third part of my change agenda is what are we going to do to kind of create data and analytics so that we can automate and measure, because we should know whether you're the most experienced marketer who's been around for a long time, or you're the brand new entrepreneur. Back to your question about talent, we should be able to know what tactic we did and what the result was, and does it meet the needs of the outcome we're trying to drive. Everything should be measured, right? And so you kind of get everybody involved, look for change agents, you over communicate, and you drive it over and over and over again. And I mean, we started down the path of this particular, those are my actual objectives for my change agenda. We started maybe a year and a half ago with what is this new position, talked about it and it is, the idea is we talk about this thing called accelerator. It's the entire breadth and depth of our portfolio, and it really delivers kind of these benefits regardless of where you start to become a digital enterprise on your Industry 4.0 initiative. Accelerator allows you, whether you need to produce a comprehensive digital twin, back to our story about NASA, whether you want to produce, whether you need open modern platforms. Again, I try to get people to understand the position we want to create outside the building. And then I go back to the talent, the experienced individuals, the new people, so tell me, what are you going to do to measure and help us drive that outcome? And I find that if they're clear about our purpose, if they really understand the purpose and they understand we're trying to measure so that we're very effective, people embrace it. And you get a lot of really interesting cross sharing. Do you know what Like, I'm always amazed when I see somebody who I might think, God, I didn't think that she had it in her to really understand this change I'm driving, really kind of be the one to turn and be the champion of it. Like, it's just fascinating to watch. So you do have people that maybe aren't gonna, they kind of are stuck in their own way, right? You're gonna have some of that. That's that's why I love being in management. I get to help those people. But to me, I always tell the story about, hey, this is a muscle, you've been using this one, I need you to use a new muscle, right? Because I think it's an and, it's not an or. And then maybe they realize that the new way actually is taking us in a new direction and it's more effective for the outcome, and they stop doing the old way. But yeah, it's communication, it's identifying change agents, and just being really, really, really clear. Leaders need to be really clear on what is it we're driving? What is the outcome of where we're going? And then it becomes really rewarding to drive any transformation. That's what I love.
I like that. I like how it relates back to the Hamlet valves, where they were selling valves and the pieces and parts, and now they're selling your factory uptime. People know Siemens for being the brains and the parts of the factory, but they don't necessarily. What we're driving them now is we are your guide to the digital enterprise fully.
Exactly. We call it the catalyst. We are the catalyst.
Sorry.
That's the way we like to say it, because we are. They are the inventors. They're the innovators. We're giving them, we're scientists and engineers. We're giving them incredible resources and tools to do amazing things. So it's a great marriage.
The other thing I think that was important that you shared was that converts are the strongest believers sometimes, and yeah, like.
They do. Well, but sometimes they sometimes have been the ones that dig their heels in and kind of they ask the hardest questions in the beginning. But that, I think, is actually the most interesting thing, because they make you really think about the outcome you're trying to drive. And if you can be clear with them and you have the right, you kind of can get them to understand, then they become your champions, right? Yeah. They're your change agent. Yeah.
I also think, the getting clear, what is the outcome we're looking for, being super clear about it, and say it again, communicate it all the ways, all the time, because that's what we focus on. And I like to think we're changing the world. So thank you, Brenda, for bringing that to the conversation. Are we Industry 4.0? Are we the ones making it happen?
Are we happen? I'd like to think it takes a village.
Fair,
so it is
fair.
A we. That's right. It takes a village. But yeah, I think yes, I think we're all part of it, and it's pretty cool to be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brenda. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for enlightening us on Industry 4.0 and the digital mindset, and sharing all those super juicy examples. If anyone listening wants more information about Industry 4.0 and the digital mindset, make sure you're checking out the Siemens Digital Industries Software blog. You can follow Brenda on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions about how industrial companies can and should communicate about their innovation, please visit us at hotwireglobal.com. We will have new episodes of Hot Takes with other tech leaders soon, so sign up on our website or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.